So they're on Commercial. I was taking a walk, and there's a Black Panthers building there. It's got this mural of the Black Panthers. I didn't have my cell phone. I couldn't take a picture of it. Maybe I'll try to find one online. There won't be time. I'm not going to be able to edit it. And if I can find a picture of it later, I take a picture of it. I'll put it in the description. But there's a building it talks about, and there's a mural, and it says Black Panthers, and it says all the 10 things or however many things they have about the Black Panthers. And I found it very interesting because you all know the history of that stuff. You watch Forrest Gump, and there's Black, and then there he's got his UC Berkeley. What a dream this retard guy from America can have because of all these things. He went and gets Jenny, and she's UC Berkeley. She went to UC Berkeley for whatever reason. It's just that all the things of the era, and maybe she was dumb too, and that's why she did drugs. And Jenny, I'm not retarded. And of course, he had these arguments with Black Panthers. He was a soldier, just defending the way of things, and that this is the honorable way to die, and go and Lieutenant Dan and all that stuff in Vietnam, defending himself against a Black Panther, I believe, at UC Berkeley, and Jenny's in the middle of it. And anyway, so the point that we're making here is during Dr. Ra's social rhythm therapy, to finish my digression, you can't say "stay classy, San Diego." You're not allowed to say it. You can't say it. I mean, you'll never get to become this deal, but you can't say "stay classy, San Diego" until you can have people you can sit down and talk to that'll teach you if that's really a Black Panther building or that they just made a mural on that building. But this is the things you learn. Like when I go to an area, I like to learn the history of things, and when you learn the history of things, you become a local, whether Compass Beale likes it or not, and that's all the way up in Encinitas, and I'm down here downtown. So, but you got to sit down with someone. I turn to a personal assistant and I say, find out if that's a Black Panthers building where they hold Black Panthers meeting. And there's one of their things is the shelter of people. So some stuff we should care about, because we need shelter. And so it said that, and so let's find out if this is a place where they had Black Panthers meetings, or there was historically or currently, or if this is something that's just a mural on a building, because okay, this is the history, and we'll just put it Black Panthers on this. So we one eeny meeny miny more the third thing, and once you know a piece of information that will tell you not only about one building, like you go down to the Gaslamp Quarter or whatever, and you've got these historic buildings, and it's got a little plaque on it that talks about the history of what it was, or there's an old paper mill in the commercial and industrial area here by 12th Imperial Transit Center that we're pulling off from to get to Walmart this morning in lieu of having breakfast at Father Joe's Villages. But they didn't try to teach us the Black handshake enough. And this is one thing that they went over, I think just because Barack Obama is the president of the United States. So Dr. Roth, that social rhythm therapy, there is something odd about it. And I'm going to actually venture to say that because of how ineffective it was, you have to look back on it and say this was some kind of a scam that existed 100% to deprogram me to make sure I never started trying to touch anybody. And I'm going to talk about two things, which is that they should have spent more time elaborately drilling that into us. Why? Because even if you're not Black and you're not going to do it that way, you learn something from it about coordination, about movement, about the fitness that you need, and about the speed at which you have to do these secret handshakes. And everybody has it. Some of them are very nonverbal, especially with the Asian cultures. They learn it's just kind of because you're Chinese in San Francisco, and you kind of learn how to, like in Amy Tan's, I'm simulating it, I don't know, but that's the stuff you begin to simulate when you realize how fast you have to be able to do it. And they did not spend enough time teaching us every step of it, because you realize it doesn't matter what culture it is, but there's every culture, every club, every elite circle has its own secret handshake. And so it's like it's not the same thing as being on a computer and doing TCP/IP, and then there's handshake, and there's kind of a handshake with dial-up modem. That's the kind of protocols they'd actually rather people that they identify for deletion, medicate, disintegrated puzzle piece. That's what we want them doing. We tell them we don't want you doing it that way. We want you to have the actual handshakes. But then they say, but in reality, that's just a cover up that they don't want us having the actual handshakes. They want us sitting in front of a computer, A+ Network Plus, and doing that kind of handshake where the computer's talking to the computer once we get the two computers talking to each other, because you're so heebie-jeebie that if we can just have you sitting in front of a computer, that's why you interact with the computer. That's all you can do. And thank you for that. But so that the next thing is there's a building not far from the Iris Transit Center on the route, and it says KMG Psychiatry there. I think it's in Chula Vista, or it's a past Chula Vista. I gotta find out where it's at. I'll put it in the link, and when I put the description, I'm gonna find a picture of the Black Panthers building, and then I'll put where that KMG Psychiatry Center of Excellence is. And it's interesting that it's a center of excellence. These psychiatrists, there's no way to beat them at brainwashed, but take one look at that. And I actually, like I've been talking about, most parents, not even that are geniuses, but that are just, my child should play football, I'm not stupid. And I'm talking about in San Diego and in California and Hawaii, the coastal areas. These are liberals. These are not people that, they're stereotypical conservatives that think right, have common sense, but in states where it's all done Democrats, that they're liberals. And these are the people that do indeed agree consciously. That's what they warned us about. That's what Alex Jones warned about. That's what Michael Savage warned about. But these are people that consciously just know that this is the crap that is put in the water for our eugenically bred sons to play football at SDSU and be strong, is that they can't just be strong and have great bodies and be athletic prime examples of what men can do, the speed they can do it at, and the damage that they can do on a football field. They actually crap in the water. They have to put this LGBT, this DEI, diversity stuff, which is to make people weak. So when they break into NCAA scholarships, it has to come at the expense of another class of people having been made weak. And because they didn't have fathers that looked at that sign and said, "Oh, brainwash, center of excellence." KMG Psychiatry Center of Excellence, because when you walk into that building, you know what that's about. When you walk into this building, into the Center of Excellence, you are the Center of Excellence. That Center of Excellence, that's about you. You're the Center of Excellence. And it's like Vladimir Lenin controlling everything in some dimension by some map of the universe, centrally planning everything. And so because you're heebie-jeebie and you're a disintegrated puzzle piece identified for deletion, you're going to take antipsychotics, you're going to go in there, they're going to give you antipsychotics, they're going to follow the template that they put in the book Whitaker, Mad in America. They're going to give you Ritalin to start off because I'm not keeping up with things. So you just need to be moving around. You need to be moving around, giving yourself energy by moving around. Would help to have sex too. But we're going to give you Ritalin, and so you can keep up with your schoolwork. Oh no, it doesn't work. It burns the brain out. Burns the brain out, and that's the part that's I speculate. It's a gamma hertz. It's a gamma energy. Burns it out, so you can't touch. You're stuck in a dream. Now you're someone that can only work on a computer for an elite that doesn't want to look at a computer. They're making a class of people that identify you for deletion, missing puzzle piece, and instead of killing you, they damage your brain so that you can use a computer and do nothing else. You're going to use a computer for elites. They've created an entire class of people that can't go to a party, can't communicate quickly, can't be fully alive, can't be athletic, can't have their bodies, can't do all of these things like travel to Russia, travel to South America, travel to Latin America, travel to Canada, travel all across the United States of America. They take all these cash flows from here, 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 and here, like the elites that have rich family office. People do it for them, and we've created an entire class of people that can only work in the family office and never touch the money except for when it's to make us more money. I want the money. That's the money. I want to touch the money and the booty too, as in the rich family female flank, their USDA prime. The actual beneficiaries to the family office, not just the lady at the front desk. And that's so they create a class of people that can only use a computer. You are the center of excellence. What's happening when you're taking these medications is this is no joke. And people that are probably 10% of the population, that's high intelligence especially, that kind of thinks about these things, may have gone into environments and places where there's high, and Hawaii is a place where they have a high, lots of autistic people, and they're born heebie-jeebie, and their bodies are crappier, and they wear these special name tags that say, just not just to have a transit badge. There's a special, this is my special. This is to show I'm disintegrated puzzle piece. Father Joe's Village is There I am. And so that shows I'm disintegrated puzzle piece. You are identified for deletion. This is your concentration camp. When the cyanide gas rises, it's all over. Enjoy your life until then, because we're not going to be able to. We've broken away so much. Homes are $700,000. Homes are $1 million. We've broken away so much from all of you that in this area, unless we get you to another area in a rural community or to another state, it's just the truth. You're going to have to leave. You are all going to have to leave. You're not going to be able to buy a home here. There's no way in. And it's just going to lead to your slavery for the rest of your life, because it's going to be poor, track home, poor people, ugly people, and we're meant to be around attractive people, make a lot of money, six-figure income, and you have no pathways to it. So this is your concentration camp ID badge, and it says when the cyanide gas rises, the loudspeaker speaks up and says give up. But what's happening is these psychiatrically medicated people have a special community and a special wife to go through life with, and they can go into places like casino. They can go into places like in Las Vegas. They can go into, touristy environments like the Strip in Las Vegas or Gaslamp Quarter, and they can, because they have the money to do it. They have the right to be in public, but they are using voice to assault. 5G, it's run on the cell phone towers, the transmitters, so that they can be going through life and never touching a person and never touching a thing, and bringing their bad genes and heebie-jeebie into a place that would so disrupt human reproduction connections, right? So they can be spending the money that they have to travel, which is their right as Americans, but also be disintegrated so that their existence doesn't interfere with human reproduction connections, because even one human reproduction connection interfered with by having a disabled person that's spastic that talks that way in the same public area creates a massive issue. Because indeed, I'm going to talk about my family story in a future video, but sympathy for disability made my grandfather choose an inferior wife. Also, that and back then, this was, I guess, before the anti-rape, all the anti-patriarchy stuff that weakened San Diego, and that's the crap in the water of all the fathers that agree that their son should play football. So we're going to put crap in the water, anti-patriarchy. But that's what happens. You don't have a father figure like that, or a mother that's kind of smart. At least, like, you got to give it to Jill Biden. Poor Hunter Biden, but she's kind of smart. Let's smoke some crack while we figure this out. Your dad has dementia. And there you go. But and we don't take a vilify. You're a genius nutcase that lies on his to get guns, and you should have guns because you're a genius. And I don't care what the government says. It's because you're poor. DJT, look, his gun on he's got the pistol on his side. He's got it's a leather thing that's the pistols in. He's got his own logo on it. He sells it, but that's because he's rich. And because he's rich, he doesn't even have to comply with sanity and competence, and it doesn't matter. He's above the whole thing. He decides who's sane and competent, and so screw that. Let's declare you above the law too. Dad's gonna pardon you since he's demented, and we'll smoke some crack and figure this out. That you got to give it to Jill Biden, and we're not gonna take a vilify. Let's have you selling shit on your canvas like prison art that they like to have at SDSU prison art, and let's have you selling shit on canvas in order to pay your rent in Malibu. That's a great mom, even though that's all he had at that time, because Dad had dementia and couldn't run the country. You see what I'm getting at? Is if you see a building that says Center of Excellence, KMG Psychiatry, Center of Excellence, immediately, boom, no, my son's going to play football. Center of Excellence. He doesn't need people doing psyops all around him and voices he hears through voice to skull, preventing him from interacting with able-bodied, able-minded people and having impact on society. He's not going to take medication, so psyops can be run around him. So he feels integrated, even though he's in a small community of autistic friends that have 5 people, and it's intimate friendship with 5 people that are heebie-jeebie, that never end up developing that strength, never end up developing that voice that does, because it's true, that's the thing with it. It's a social disease. Someone like that screws up human reproduction. But sympathy for people with disabilities. My grandfather came from Hawaiian housing, and so his white wife, because he was in the Navy, so he got to have a white wife, ended up being a short, skinnier, a little bit of the bad genes from Alabama kind of thing. It wasn't the good stuff in the water in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And of course she was born in San Diego. But that's how you got to look at things, is if he was allowed to rape someone is taller than him. If patriarchy enabled him to rape someone taller than him and make the choice and say, I'm going to take in a girl that's 3 inches taller and, you know, broad shoulders, and it doesn't have to be someone shorter than me. If that's how functional patriarchy is in society, so a man can just say, because he's a man, he gets a woman Amazonian, he gets a woman, you know, the Marine Corps, like that, you know. But back then they didn't have that kind of thing. Back then, this was before that. Back then, you know, these elites didn't really, it was full CIA. That these would have been full CIA. You know, they're investigating KGB in Russia, and then they fly him out of there. It would have been, so he would have had to say, because I'm a man, I want full CIA, and she's 6'1", all-American kind of beauty. Because patriarchy was not as functional as it should have been, and there was already this, let's get weak, let's get sissy, let's get, you know, some people don't play football, that we were already moving in the direction of the crap in the water, which is psychiatry is the biggest crap in the water. And anyone that is a liberal genius that has his son play football is going to know that, you know, this is the crap being put in the water for the ones we keep weak, so that my son at least gets to play football at the Aztecs.